Oh, all right. Now I'm live. All right. So if you're watching, sorry, it took me a minute to get live. I had a hard time with that. So for anybody that's live, if you want to start, we're going to go through these 3 cancellation forms. If you didn't know there was 3 cancellation forms, there is 3 cancellation forms. They all can be found in transaction desk. And we're going to run through notice of cancellation of purchase agreement. We've got buyer brokerage agreement, early termination addendum. And we're going to run through early termination of the listing agreement. So those are your 3 cancellation forms. And then what to do with those cancellation forms in regards to property-based and closing your file. Okay? But first, let's see what's happening. Because it's October, right? So now we have all of our September statistics. So a couple things that have changed. If your lenders haven't gotten a hold of you, conventional loan limits have gone up. I believe we're at 625 now for conventional loan limits, which is good for your jumbo customers. Right? Next, we should hear about FHA loan limits. I'm pretty sure they're just waiting on the start of this 4th quarter numbers before they review that. So we went from this is our average sales price, went from August of 2021, this is single family only, to 462,795. Pretty good, right? You guys got a $600 raise, is that right? If it's based upon percentages. So the price is still climbing. What's the reason? Low interest rates. Who's going to keep up with that? The banks. If they're going to keep making loans, they're going to keep increasing loan limits, which in the future can cause hazy transactions. But they're going to go with the flow and try to make as much money as possible, right? So you should be doing the same. Loan limits are higher. Be prepared for FHA loan limits to go higher. That's my update for September. So nothing's changed. Last week, the numbers for MLS are changing. I don't know if you guys are using them, but I am old school and I've only known those numbers. So it's a big transition for me. But I did go in and change all of my search parameters. If I was searching Silverado Ranch, I had them all in 303s, or I had them 303s and 606s if it was understanding Silverado Ranch. I had to change them and do my map searches, polygons, parameters. So hopefully you guys have it all done because tomorrow is the last day for the numbers. So if you don't change them, then your clients will not get those listings in those area MLS numbers. Looks like we had a good week last week. Almost 1,200 homes were closed out in the last 7 days. And new listings were taken about 1,000. So market's still active. So even if there is no inventory, there's new inventory coming on, so you should be able to find something for your clients to just keep at it. All right, let's go into the topic today. Or any questions on market updates? Anybody want to share anything? If you do online, share it over here in this little comment bar, and then I'm trying to keep an eye on both sides. So if you have something, just put it in there. Questions, concerns, comments on September market? Anybody? Okay. Let's run through cancellation forms. And let's start with Listing agreements. So let's start with sellers first. How do we cancel a seller? Well, in here is, we just type in early. Now this is based upon you. If not, pull up early termination of listing agreement. That's one we're going to run through real quick. So you've taken a listing. Seller decides 3 months into it, hey, I don't want to sell anymore, or something happened. I can't afford to go buy that bigger house, so I need to stay in my house. I need to cancel my listing agreement. Well, this is the form you need to turn to, right? Early termination of listing agreement. In reference to the listing agreement, by Joe Schmo as seller and blank Cornell Roki as broker. What's the date of the listing agreement? Whatever that is, put in there. Located at such and such. The seller wishes to terminate the listing agreement prior to the contractual expiration date of the listing completion. In exchange for said early termination, seller agrees to select one. Are you charging them a fee? You put out money for photos, you put out money for marketing, you put out. So you need to have those conversations, right? Hey, will you reimburse me the $500 I had to put out for photos, signs, flyers, whatever you spend, $1,000, $1,200. Have that conversation. If it is, they'll sign off. Yeah, I'll reimburse you for those expenses. Or two, pay broker an amount equal to all broker direct expenses while marketing the property. So then you got to supply receipts, right? The flat fee, you just agree to a flat fee. Two, you got to give them the receipts, right? This is what I spent on all your marketing. Three, broker will unconditionally withdraw an expense for listening to another broker, subject to being able to negotiate an acceptable referral commission from that broker prior to termination. Now that's the one we probably need to discuss, right? What does that mean? Well, you're losing the listing agreement to Keller Williams, Remax, Realty One, Berkshire Hathaway, right? So, hey, yeah, I'll let you go list with those guys. Sotheby's International or whatever. As long as I can negotiate a referral fee so that I get paid for my time, right? That's what I would say. I don't mind if you go market with that broker. So let's check mark that, and let's negotiate a referral fee, right? 10, 20, 30%, whatever you can get worked out with that other broker. Or what's a common one? Well, I want my cousin to list it, or my uncle. Just got his license, he wants to list it, so he wants to cancel his termination block. Let's talk to uncle or cousin or sister or brother or whatever and get a referral fee, right? Because you did all of the work, you kind of already priced it out for them, what it's going to sell for. So that's why we use this one, because we give them the option. Give me $1,000, give me money back for my marketing expenses, or hey, when you do sell, can I get work this referral fee with that broker that's taking over? This agreement will terminate with 2 business days of receipt by broker of a fully executed agreement. Okay. So I have to sign off on them, whatever you guys negotiate, so that everybody's on the same page when we do that. All right. Any questions on that form? Nope. All right. So what do we do in back office? So because you've already uploaded a contract, right? So the contract, the seller owns the property. No. All right. Create new transaction. And we have uploaded what? The duties, you should have the duties owed in and the listing agreement in by this point, along with hopefully the residential disclosure guide. And when I say hopefully the residential disclosure guide is because in the listing agreement, if it's initialed that you gave them the residential disclosure guide, they should have a copy and you should have a receipt signed on file. So listing agreement, if you've done nothing but take the listing agreement and uploaded it into the MLS, which you should have an active, you would have duties, listings, and residential disclosure guide and right? You just marketed property for 3 months, no contractual obligation with the buyer, but you do have a contractual obligation with the seller, unless you guys are terminated. Okay. So on that, instead of just leaving it in there, we are going to cancel it. See where I went and hit the cancel button? Okay. So cancel is going to bring up 2 questions for you guys. Yes, I have an executed contract to terminate. Binding legal agreements are involved that require proper legal termination. There also may be formal release documentation for earnest money deposit. Or no, I just need to cancel the transaction. There's an executed contract or earnest deposit. Now, in the seller's instance, that's a legally binding contract, right? I can go fight for you and battle for the rights, exclusive rights, because that's what you're using, to list the property and get paid a commission. So that is a legal binding contract that needs to be removed here. So when you answer yes, it's pretty simple system. It's just flowcharts. So you have a signed listing agreement that needs to be terminated, and this would be yes, because you needed to terminate that contract, right? And that's going to prompt it to have a cancellation form. And then you can begin termination. Okay? And the reason you have to answer these questions and do this is because you had a contractual obligation, and what it does is it affects our errors and omissions policy. So if we do it correct, it's less money out of your pocket in regards if the seller decides to sue, and then we need to open our E&O policy for legal representation. Does that make sense? So if we have all these in a row, I can go in and say, here's what happened with the contract, and push for dismissal versus having to backtrack through all of the contractual obligations. Okay? So when you begin termination, it's just going to prompt that you have a cancellation form. So on the listing agreement, it's going to prompt that you have this form. Okay? It's not an MLS change order. I know there's a withdrawal form that you also have to withdraw it from the MLS. So there's 2 choices on that. There's conditional withdrawal and withdrawn unconditional. So if there is a condition under this termination of listing agreement, then we need to know what that condition is under WC. Now, unconditional withdrawals are just, hey, I'm just going to release you from the listing agreement and just withdraw unconditionally, which is what you almost want to look at if you're taking over a listing. That one, the broker has to go in and change. So that needs to be submitted to us, and then we need like a quick email or a text to change the status to withdrawal unconditional. That way it can be relisted. Because anything that's in WC can't be relisted because of the condition. Okay? Everybody understand how to terminate a listing agreement? Any questions? That one's a really easy one. Go ahead. Why would you withdraw it? So that your contractual obligation continues. So say you took a listing that didn't expire until December 31st, and they wanted to list with somebody else, but they didn't want to have that conversation with you because that broker said, we'll just get them to withdraw information. Well, common courtesy, because especially if you're going to do this for a while, you should reach out to the other broker. Like, hey, what's going on? Because we're the ones that work with each other. You'll notice, after you pass year 5 and 7, who's still in the business, who's not in the business. So have that courtesy to reach out to that broker or that agent. Like, hey, I'm listing this property. They told me it was withdrawn. Do you need any documents signed by this client before I take over as an agency for them? And it works better in the long run. You're running into people that you've worked with on previous transactions, and it'll make your next client's transaction a lot easier if you have that common courtesy for it. But WC is if, hey, I just want to fire you, and they give you no absolute reason at all, you can hold them to your listing agreement because they signed it. So that protects your commission through, if you wrote it the right way, to the end of December. And then if you've dealt with anybody in between that period, it protects you from, or them from selling to them without you getting paid for an additional 60 or 90 days for the future. So that's WC. It just prevents it. Like, oh, I don't want to sell anymore. Okay, that's fine. That's a fair enough reason. But you still have a listing agreement. So that will prevent them from next day turning and selling the property to customers. And you not getting paid. WU would prevent you from getting paid or in cooperation. All right. So let's go back up here and let's talk about the other thing. So how many of you guys do buyer brokerage agreements? Who's in the process of it? I know it's a tough one to do, but if you're juggling 10 buyers at a time, it's probably a good idea to get them to sign a buyer broker agreement, which has a start and a termination date, so that you know that you're getting paid. And what this does is terminate that contract, because that I know a lot of people do the buyer broker agreement for lead systems. So if you're taking leads from Redfin, Zillow, Zolo, Polo, whatever those lead systems are that are being new buyers, because you don't know who they're coming from. If it's coming from your sphere, right, usually that's a trusted source, so you're probably not doing a lot of buyer broker. But if you guys are purchasing leads and they're like strangers, basically, it probably would be a good practice to do the buyer broker agreement. That way, when they sign it, you're the only broker they're looking at. So 2 months, 3 months, whatever you're dealing. But if they do want to leave, then they have to sign off on an early, or I have to sign off that I'm going to release them from obligation in the buyer broker agreement to work with you. Okay? So kind of the same concept. We're terminating that contract, buyer brokerage agreement, and I've got like 3 or 4 choices. I got 4 choices because I can do fill out one like I can on the early termination of working agreement. They're going to give me a flat fee for my time, right? 2, they're going to pay an amount equal to all brokers' direct expenses. That's why I always encourage miles. Put those miles in your expenses, and how many times you went out with them. I did 5 tours. That's 10 hours of my time. Okay. For me, it's I do 2-hour tours if I was out with a buyer, 5 properties. So that's my time. And then 3, broker will unconditionally withdraw, subject to being able to negotiate acceptable referral commission. So that one comes down to, hey, this is not working out. I want to cancel my buyer broker agreement, and I only work with Joe Smith over at Realty 1%. Okay. Well, let me negotiate a referral fee since I spent all this time with you, and then I'd be happy to release you from the buyer broker agreement. So if you can get a long buyer broker agreement, by all means do it, because then they're agreeing to work with you on a exclusive, right? This is the form we need to terminate that. So on the back office, anytime, it might be why a lot of you guys don't use the buyer broker agreement, but anytime we've got a buyer broker agreement. So again, you're starting residential. Because anytime you have a document signed by you, the buyer, and then on the buyer broker agreement, I have to execute it, but you have to upload. The buyer broker agreement is going to do seller, sell, and we are representing, we're showing properties, right? So buyer, go back to Joe Snow or Joe Mama. Joe Bob. That was Joe Bob is me. Creating transactions. So on this one, we are actively showing, so we do have documents, right? We should have a duty owed, and we should have a buyer broker agreement uploaded if you have a buyer broker agreement. If there's signatures on it, it needs to be uploaded so that I have a copy. Because if the buyer comes to me and says, the president's not doing his job right, I want to be assigned to a new agent. Internally it's easy, because then I can just go, hey, Preston, do you mind, you guys don't sound like you're getting along, can I give you a 25% referral and pass it on? Is that okay? Would you accept 25% not to work with a full time? There you go. But internally, but I have to have a contract so that I can say, okay, but I'm going to assign you to someone else's office. And then they just have to do duties there and take over that buyer brokerage agreement. Because it's still the buyer brokerage agreement's with Cornell. So if it's signed and they've got a 6-month obligation to work with us, then I can pass it on to their agent that they possibly would get along with. Or so that would be good. Again, all you have to do is, I think the detail, once you have all the referral forms, you can just transfer. Internally, it's easy as long as everything is uploaded. So on this, if you do a summary, it's going to ask us the same thing when we come down here to cancel it out of our agreement. I'd say we didn't refer it out, but we just did a flat fee, right? So is there a proper legal termination? Or say, hey, I just didn't want to work with the guy and I didn't want to refer anybody to just cancel. If that's the scenario, and there's no buyer brokerage agreement, then it would just be as simple as this one. But if you do have a buyer brokerage agreement, you need a cancellation form, which you would upload here. So however we cancel it, it's going to prompt your flow chart. If you just say, no, I just didn't cancel it, there's no flow chart. Because I've got what's called a ghost file or anything. You close it out, but I have an executed contract somewhere. That leaves us open to risk that you breach the contract. Does that make sense? So we don't ever want to breach contract. We know more about contracts. But if you cancel them, make sure it's in writing. And then again, this will prompt the question. Yes, I need to terminate the buyer's representative agreement, which is the buyer broker's agreement, right? You or your client wish to terminate formal working relationship before the agreement has expired. So yes, begin termination. It's going to prompt in the doc. Orange tab. Right? So if we had if we had uploaded by a broker's agreement, it's going to update the cancellation form. Most of these we just need an email somewhere. You can put it in the addendum, and then on all the yellows. You guys know that all the yellows have, most of them have, this written request extension. So because it's a computer and it's a flowchart computer, it's going to prompt forms that say these are required. If you guys would just click this request extension, it's like, hey, we didn't have to use this form or it's irrelevant for the file, then it will prompt us to review it and note that you don't need that form. So anything that has a request extension on it, just click that button and type in an explanation. Just because it's orange doesn't mean the computer's correct, but the computer's going to prompt something for you. So, any questions on representing cancellation of a listing agreement or cancellation of a buyer broker agreement? Good. Anybody online following along? Any questions? Let's see. If we get to that page that asks if we have an executed contract that we can deliver. Okay, that's a quick question. Andrew, if you're listening, if you go to details, I'm sorry, summary, the flag right here, the summary page, which is everything that you've done. At the very bottom of the flag, there's a cancel button, and then you just click the cancel button, and then it asks you, yes, I have a executed contract to terminate, or no, I just need to cancel this transaction. If you're using it for your contact manager, every time you get a buyer lead, you put them in there, right? So that it reminds you to use it. So if you're using this as a contact manager and you don't have an agreement with them, just click this button and you can edit the file. Anything that's signed is what I'm looking for, because that's I have an obligation to that client if I've signed something or if you've signed something stating that you've represented them. So that's what I'm looking for on a yes question. So if you do have you and the client sign something, that's where I need this canceled this way. If nothing is signed, just cancel it. Like, hey, no harm, no foul. We attempted to make this work. I have no contractual obligation with you. I'm looking for contractual obligation on the yes. Okay? Does that help, Andrea? To cancel? Okay, good. If not, you can come back and review it. All right, so let's move on to the main dish, which is the notice of cancellation of purchase agreement, cancellation of escrow, and release of earnest money. Okay. Now, boom, the file is no longer in my to-do list. I have in one file. Now it's gone because I have no contractual. So next form. Now there's a lot of different ways to cancel a purchase agreement, right? Who here has had to cancel a purchase agreement? Buyer backs out, or seller backs out. Anybody? Yeah. Okay. Okay, cancel. What? Cancellation purchase agreement. There it is. Good. All right, for everybody paying attention online, we are looking at notice of cancellation of purchase agreement, cancellation of escrow, and release of money deposit. This form is relevant if you have signed a purchase agreement, you open an escrow, and the buyer has put, 5 or 10,000, whatever the earnest money deposit is, into escrow. Okay, you are still within due diligence. You want to cancel, right? So we have earnest money funds that, because it's sitting with a third party, we're going to have to require 2 signatures to release it, right? A buyer signature and a seller signature. No matter where you go, which escrow company you go to, they want to know that the buyer agrees to release the funds and the seller agrees to release the funds. So this is mutual instruction on how to do that. Pursuant to the purchase agreement, whatever the date is, for the property at 123 Apple Street, between Joe Bob and Jim Smith, the seller, cancellation of contract and escrow, select one. Right? Both buyer and seller hereby cancels the agreement for the following reason. That's if you guys have already got like a mutual agreement to cancel, or you have the option to check buyer or seller. Okay, so if the buyer says, "I want to cancel because we found mold in the wall" or something like that, there's a couple different ways you can do it. Refer request, I think we went through that last week, or you can go straight to this. Hey, we just want to cancel and have our own money release. So check mark buyer. And note which portion of the purchase agreement that you have the right to cancel with. So if it's due diligence, you put that paragraph in there, or if it is they didn't agree with the HOA rules and regulations, you put that one in there. They couldn't get the loan contingency is gone, you put that paragraph in there. Appraisal's another one. If the appraisal didn't come in and you guys couldn't work out the price, you cancel because of that paragraph. So you're specifically stating the buyer's right to cancel with that paragraph. Okay? And then it's instructions to cancel escrow. So you put the escrow number in there and you put the title name. So escrow at blah, blah, blah at Chicago Title. Everybody initials recognizing that there's an escrow open and that's being canceled. And then the second part is, what do we do with the earnest funds? Right? Well, if you're the seller and you think you have the right to all of the due diligence and appraisal, loan contingencies, you're probably going to say, I have the right as the seller to receive the earnest money, or vice versa. The buyer has the right to receive the money. So, 4 selections, including another. Seller authorizes release of buyer's earnest deposit to buyer, which is the first one, using contract terminated money to return. 2, buyer authorizes release of buyer's earnest money deposit to seller. It's usually not the case. I've yet to find a buyer to just reluctantly leave their earnest money deposit with the seller. If you guys have found somebody to do that, I want to hear your story, because that's not the case, and I'm about to run 20 years in this industry. Okay, number 3. Both buyer and seller acknowledge mutual cancellation of the agreement and authorize escrow holder to continue to hold earnest money deposit until receiving subsequent mutual instructions or a judicial decision. So both parties at that point aren't agreeing that you want to cancel the purchase agreement, right? So in the purchase agreement, there's an ability to mediate. Now remember, that's got to be done within like 90 days of the cancellation. Otherwise, you guys lose that mediation, and then they have to take it through the court system to argue out the earnest money deposit. But this pretty much will alleviate us from contractual duties, and that's why I'm preaching this point. Okay, whichever way the money deposit goes, if it's going to sit there, if this is in there that hey, we have to deal with this in the future, then we know that we have an obligation. Okay? Unless otherwise specified, buyer and seller release each other from all obligations to buy, sell, or exchange the property pursuant to the agreement. Buyer and seller further release each other from claims, demands, and actions that buyer and seller may have against each other by reason of the agreement. The parties intend that all rights and obligations arising from the agreement are null and void. That, within itself, is eliminating the residential purchase agreement. There's no more obligation to continue inspecting. There's no obligation to continue loan approval. There's no obligation to get the appraisal done. There's no obligation to review disclosures. You get where I'm going with that? This eliminates the purchase agreement no matter what we have decided to do with the earnest money at that point. Now, an addendum was the common practice for cancellation, which works fine, but it's not as solid as it, because this addresses the earnest money. All right, so if there's an argument that the earnest money is not going to be released, right, and you can't get the buyer and seller to agree on it, that's why there's a section 3 and a 4 here. If it's just going to sit in escrow, you still need to cancel that purchase agreement. Okay, because once it goes past breach, then we have to figure out who breached contract. Okay? But if everybody agrees, like, hey, I'm not going to hold you to it, but we're still going to argue that earnest money, this will still cancel the purchase agreement. There's no more obligation or fact of breach of the contract. Understood? I tried to explain it as easy as possible, but contracts and breach are always a fun learning curve for everybody, and you don't learn it until you get in trouble. So I try to stay in trouble, just have these signs, and relieve everybody from their obligations and duties. Okay, now on the back office, same scenario as the cancellation, right? So we've got file, sale, we've got a contract because we've got a we showed due diligence and we got earnest money. We are representing the buyer. Joe again. Joe. Bob. Contractually, you, at this point when you open up give off a file, right? What do we have? We have duties owed. That's always the first before writing the offer. I get it if you don't have the disclosure guide, but you should have the disclosure guide because they're acknowledging it when you check purchase agreement. Uploaded, so they're either going to be in the file waiting for review. And then also, since you open escrow, guess what else you should have in your earnest money deposit receipt? Let me know that you right away as soon as the $10,000 arrives, you get a receipt from escrow officer stating, hey, we received $10,000. So that receipt goes in there. You should have it to them within 5 or 6 days after that. And then you should have it analog. Okay. So we have all those in there now, and everybody wants to cancel. I worked so hard. I worked a month to get this in the contract, and now the buyer wants to cancel. What do I do? Go back to the flag. And let's see. Yes, our contract terminate. That requires proper legal termination. Yes, I need to terminate the buyer representative. So, because you have a purchase agreement, you do have an obligation to upload a termination form. Whether it's the purchase agreement, you're canceling the purchase agreement, or you're canceling the buyer broker agreement. It's kind of the same concept. Any kind of contract is signed, you do have an obligation to put those forms in and have them canceled. Whether it's an addendum to cancel, or you're using this, which covers you a little bit better than your own buyer and seller agreed to terminate contract. Honest money to be released to special person. That's easy if you and the other agent agree that, hey, we just need to do an addendum to do that. It's signed by both parties. It instructs escrow what to do with the honest money public. There's no obligation. But your friends that you give lots of money to at the Greater Las Vegas Association of Realtors hired a bunch of attorneys to write this, so you might as well use it, right? Because you give them $2,000 a year, so that you have these lovely contracts to use. Okay. That is it. Again, back to what the market's doing. We're going up. What's the driving factor? 3% interest rates. Vince can get me an investor loan, 20% down, at 3% or less. I just talked to him about it Friday with a client. 20% down. They want a second home. 2.75 to 3%. That's not an owner-occupied rate either. So that's the driving factor for pricing. It benefits you guys because your prices are higher. It's just a matter of making the contracts work you got to close, right? We shouldn't be talking about cancellations, but I know they happen, so I wanted to get through that today. Keep the back office clean. Keep property lists as clean as possible. I know if you're using it for CMA, you stop working with Joe Bob, just cancel him out. So he's not in there. We don't have open files because we're constantly auditing and making sure we don't have ghost files, which would be a contract that's not being serviced. So that we don't have any. We're trying to reduce. We're trying to reduce risk reduction, and managing these files. So if you can cancel them out, you guys would be doing me a solid, and it would save Bonnie and I hours of running through those files. Okay. That is all I have today, unless you guys have any questions. I'll be on my cell phone if you need me. I did actually agree to go play in the LVR tournament on Revere. I shouldn't have, but I didn't go this afternoon. But if you need me, I'm on my cell phone. Anybody that golfs with me knows that I answer my phone. If you have any questions on canceling, just ask us. We'll direct you, instruct you on how to use these forms and how to do it through the back office. Take 5 minutes. Cool. Any questions? Any product knowledge you want for the next coming weeks for the fall? Okay. Not yet. I got 3 more. We got 3 showings a weekend right now. 3 to 5, which is about what we need. Wait for people to pull triggers. I think fall is just slower. Plus, it's a little overpriced. Yeah. I don't know if agents are catching on yet, but I'm noticing brokers pricing higher because we want people to make offers. Like, I've already had the conversation with my client. I just want to see what type of offer will come in, and we can negotiate from that point. So you might see a bit more negotiation. So if you see overpriced homes, don't be afraid to show them. Let's say your client's approved for 485, right? Don't be afraid to show them the 500,000 homes or the 525 homes. Because if you can write an offer at 489 and it works out and the seller says yes, then you win, right? You get a contract. So don't be afraid to show properties and just let them know. It's like, I know this is out of your price range, but I feel it's overpriced. If you like it, then you can have that conversation with the listing agent. Like, if you like it, but you're overpriced. And then you can negotiate a winning price for everybody. Yeah, so if you're struggling with like trying to find people in price ranges, I always go up and down. Sometimes buyers are like, oh, I want something in this 500 range. I'll show them stuff from 450 to 535. And before you know it, you're talking to their lender going, can you find me another $10,000? And guess what? They'll probably find you another $10,000. So that's strong negotiation there, so that you guys have, they have inventory. 1,000 goes on, 1,000 goes off. That's a good number. So, all right, keep at it. So this October, November, I'll probably run some business generating courses. I do 20 deals in 12 months. We'll run that one. How to accomplish that. Because in November, I want you guys thinking about your business plan for the following year. You should be writing that out, a little before Thanksgiving, right after Halloween, Thanksgiving time. You should have an idea of your goals and what you want to write out for the following year. And then you should be executing starting December, when you get a month start on before the year even begins. You should be lining up your buyers and your sellers at that point. So I just always made it a standard of practice about October, November to start thinking about business for next year. Because at that point you have everything in escrow for fourth quarter, right? Or you're running around with investors right now, because that's generally the idea. Investors are picking up whatever properties aren't selling in November and December, which are a little bit easier to work with than like first-time home buyers and such. So that's the plan for the next couple months. If you guys have anything else you would like to run through on Mondays, I'm open to ideas always. And that's about it. So everybody have a good week. I will talk to you soon. Anybody online have any questions? Doesn't look like it. So I am turning the live feed off, and I will see you this week.
Thank you.
Yep.